I'm Shane Nyland, and my co host is Blake Musser. And these stories you're about to hear are from Weapons Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 1st Marine Division, about the events surrounding and directly from the mouths of the people who were in Ramadi 2004.
This is part 2 of our interview with Reagan Hodges of Rainmaker Platoon.
Yeah, the story was that there was, some contact out in a field, and you guys had to do basically an L-shaped movement to contact, and you guys were running through, and there's a story in the book about you taking out a guy, and Hersher was there as well.
Are you talking about the guy that was in the machine gun nest? That was
correct. Yeah.
That's. Go ahead.
No. It was your story. I was just kind of priming.
You're talking about certain moments that happen in your life, kind of like the way I felt when I realized what I was looking at, the remains of gang on that windshield. That situation, that's one of those moments. Like I can't tell you how I even feel about like. So basically, we were fighting, running and gunning during the day. We ended up chasing some guys down. We made it to a house. We ended up going to, it had a 3rd story. And we get up there, we're elevated. Now we're looking out, we're trying to find out, where these people are. And there's I don't know how, maybe 200 yards. There's a berm, 150 yards, something like that. There's a berm, probably about 3 foot high. Cause you know how they would dig the old irrigation ditches?
Yeah.
And so they would have like the dirt from that was all laid out. So they were using that as a, like if you're on the ground, they could low crawl, but going where they want to go, and you wouldn't be able to see them. They didn't have a clue we were on the 3rd floor. So we ended up lighting dude up. There was 2 of them we lit up. So after, if we call in, I know that the rest of the company's going to start heading towards us. And I think we might have waited for them before we started sweeping the field. So we get there. Hersher was behind me, and right behind him was Captain Weiler, I believe. But he was a little distance, but not too far. I mean, everybody was pretty tight. And as we're walking up, I see this. I'm on point, like I'm way out in the front. And I see this guy. We had shot him. We had located him on the ground now. There was 2 of them we were looking for. So I ended up making contact with one guy, and his body's still making these weird movements. And I'm like, I know what's happening here. He's going to lay there. And when I get up on him, he's going to throw a grenade at me, because we had heard stories about them doing that.
Right.
So I'm fixated on him. I actually turned back and told Captain Waller, I said, I'm going to put another one in him. He goes, no. He told me not to. I said, all right, you're not going to, you listen to the man, right? So I'm walking up. Instead of having my peripheral vision out looking everywhere, I'm just deadlocked on this guy. And I'm walking up, and I'm ready to go, On that walk, out of the blue, I just hear a barrage of gunfire. So it started off, the dude was 10 feet away from me. And by the time I got done shooting, I was touching him, I can remember seeing the whites of this dude's eyes. And I remember he had an RPK. It was on a bipod. And when it was over with, we counted all the rounds. It was 29 spent casings. The brass was right there. And he had missed me every single time. And he's the one who started shooting first. And I just remember, you don't have a situation like that. If you think at all, you're a dead man. If I would have hit the ground, pretty much everybody hit the ground, which is the smart thing to do. I just took off at him and was just shooting. I know I probably no telling how many times I missed him, but I know I lit him up about 6 times. And right at the end, Leylon comes from my right-hand man. Leylon comes up from nowhere. Boom, 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 and just starts. He led into him as well. It was the craziest situation. I promise you, by the time I got done shooting, I was touching him. And I just remember the smoke coming from his barrel. And at one point I couldn't even see him because of the smoke coming off his barrel. And I remember the way that I felt immediately after that happened. Like my adrenaline was so out of control. I just remember feeling like beet red flush in my face. I remember patting myself down, thinking, how? And I'm like, I don't know how to feel at this time. And then Hersher comes up and goes, holy shit, he missed you every time. And he was laughing and joking about it. But I was still like, oh, and like, what in the hell just happened? You know? And that was when, like I said, Captain Weiler was behind me. And that's when he almost got shot. That's when he hit the ground, and some of the rounds being shot at me ended up, because he was directly behind me, I'm pretty sure, they ended up hitting and exploding, and shrapnel hitting him in the face from it. And then which ended up being one of the biggest, it was a proud moment for me years after the fact, because in the book, Captain Weiler, this is the guy that I was about to, we were not liking each other so much before that deployment because all the trouble I was getting into. And he ended up mentioning in the book, he's like, if it wasn't, he credited me for saving his life. And like, to me, he's a general now.
Yeah.
And that's like I'm proud of that, I'm proud of that situation for sure.
Yeah.
But people are like, how did you do it? It's like, I don't know how much skill was involved in that. I think it was a shitload of good luck. I think the worst shot in the history of war was in front of me, and he didn't know how to react. And all I could do was shit my pants and run at him and start shooting. And I ended up killing him. And I thank God for that, It just reminds me, before I went on that deployment, my mom's mom, my grandma, she's like super, super religious, uber religious. And she was always, me and her, we always made, like, she would talk smack to me, I would talk smack back to her. And she was a tough grandma. Like, I remember her getting on the phone with me and telling me, it was when I came home and I seen her before that deployment. She was reading all these Bible scriptures to me, and she's like, you know what? You do not go over there and be weak. And she was pointing out to me in the Bible where God, and was all about war, not all about war, but parts in the Bible that describe war and how you have to basically handle you. She goes, you go there, and you, like, she was giving me a freaking Chesty Puller speech like nobody's business. And she's like, if God, he decides when you're going to die, when you're not, you don't be afraid of anything. And I was thinking, my gosh, she might have been right, because there's no excuse to why I should have lived through that. I mean, 29 times from the longest distance was like 10 feet away.
Yeah.
How do you, the only thing I can think of is that he's seen me creeping up the whole time. But what he also probably seen was people behind me. And he's probably thinking, oh shit. Like, he knows his, one way or the other, even if he kills me, his days are over. He knows that. I can only assume that he was so nervous about that, he couldn't get a beat on me, because I didn't go left and right. I just went straight at him, because that was the shortest distance. I was like, I'm either going to shoot him or I'm going to tackle this son of a bitch, but something's going to happen, Yeah. And I guess going back to that story my grandma had, I was like, wow. I mean, it was just a crazy, like, even to this day, like, if I have a bad dream about that, it's not about, people that I've killed or anything. I always thought, what it would be like are you going to feel bad about killing somebody in war? And the feeling that I always took with me is that you're not. Like, I wouldn't feel bad about that. And I was 100% right. I didn't give a shit about killing them people. It was the goal. It was that's what we had trained for. That's what it was meant to be, I guess. I don't know. But that is, I just remember afterwards, and I had a video camera that kept me there, and I'm starting filming immediately after that. And I just remember my adrenaline shaking. Like, it was crazy. I'll never experience that feeling again, especially that adrenaline rush, because it was a lot of like anxiety. Like if I have a dream about something now, it's about that. And I wake up with anxiety from that. And that's not even like that was a good situation. I come out best case scenario. And that has like given me more anxiety about anything else ever in my life. I mean, but I mean, I'm good, but it's like, wow, what a lucky bastard I am, you know? That's, I mean,
I know that strikes true for me too, man. Like uh, if there's negative feelings from the deployment, it's not for any of the shooting that I did,
yeah.
but it's like it's the intensity of the time, and it gets it, and my anxiety is just through the like I'm very anxious, and I can't figure out how to get myself back down because then I'm like on that super hypervigilance phase. But it's never a yours is a little bit more specific than even mine of like it's just sometimes just running the gauntlet of Route Michigan. I just have just the feeling like I'll have a dream about just not even having an IED pop off, but then I'll wake up out of that and I might as well just get out of bed because I ain't going back to sleep.
It's funny you say that. I can tell you so many times where I've had that exact dream, and I'll wake up at, 4 or 5 in the morning, and you wake up because you're living that experience again. Mm-hmm. And in the moment of your dream, you don't realize you're going to live, you just, and so I'll wake up and my body's intense. Like I'm squeezing every muscle and I get up and my heart's about 103, beats per minute. And it's like, I ain't going back to sleep. I'll just go to the gym. I'll get up, drive, go to the gym, come back. And it's pretty wild, it's, I just never felt bad about doing the job. I never was worried. I'm not going to lie and say that. I think everybody over there, once the shit started really hitting the fan, they think about dying one time or another, like, oh my God, like I could die. You think about that. I pushed that out of my head. I didn't care about dying as much as I was afraid of the selfish part of me was like, if you die, you're like part of me was like, yeah, I'm meant to die on a battlefield, That's just part of my personality, part of the way I think. But the selfish part of me was like, I don't want to go home with no legs. I don't want to go home with no eyes. I don't want to lose an arm. Like I was more selfishly worried about just getting fucked up and living than I was dying. It's a weird way to think, but no, that's the truth.
No, I have very, very vivid recollections of that. Exactly what you're talking about, Reagan. Like that deal making process. At first it was like I'm not going to be okay if I lose my hand. Then that's a bridge too far. And then eventually it's like, well, I'll come back as long as I'm a quadriplegic, And then eventually you just get to a point where it's like, fuck it all. As long as I don't embarrass myself, like it's kind of again, kind of that selfish, like I just don't want to go out like a bitch. Yeah. And I want to make sure that I'm doing it for I want to make sure that this was mission accomplishment and my boys are coming home. Because I think we were all in positions of where we were in charge of people. And that was, making sure they came home was the most important thing that was for me.
Yep.
And and fuck all for me. I don't give a shit,
my mentality was like, I mean, you obviously should seek cover when you can. It's just a smart thing to do to stay alive, to kill more bad guys. But in those tight situations, my best defense, I felt for me and my team was just a badass offense. Like I'm a lot quicker to shoot than I am running, Sure. I pray, run, I'm a predator. But we advanced forward, and there was nowhere to run in that situation anyways.
That's our doctrine though,
exactly.
Like fire superiority,
exactly,
like let's, like you don't need a perfect plan. Just start shooting.
And there's no place you could hide Captain Weiler. He was huge.
No, he's an animal, dude. There's no place.
Yeah. You had to have a whole building to hide him.
Exactly.
He's not hiding.
Lieutenant Dobbs, same thing.
Exactly. Huge men. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to, speaking of Dobbs, I got to give him his props too, man. I don't want to give him too much props. He'll get a big head. No, he won't. He's a great guy. But I think he was perfect as far as the platoon commander goes, at least for me. He let me do my thing, so to speak, as long as it made sense. Probably get away with a little more than others. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that way. Other people have said that to me as well. But he was just, hey, we put you guys, certain guys in these positions. We trust you to handle your business. Go handle it.
Yeah.
He didn't put handcuffs on us. We did our best to do the right thing. We weren't out there shooting people that didn't deserve to be killed. We weren't doing anything like that to begin with.
Right.
But he let us do our thing, and I love and value that more than I can even put in words. You know, like my kid, like Lieutenant Dobb, came out and visited me and my son that went to the Naval Academy. We had dinner with him. We ate with him. He came out and met. And I tell my kid, like I said, like I tell him stuff about Lieutenant Dobb because he wants to know about leadership and about being a lieutenant. And his dream is become like a great leader. And I'm like, and I would just, as he's older now, like, I mean, he's got a hold of me and said, hey, guess what we're learning about in the Naval Academy? We're learning about like the Battle of Ramadi. We're learning about these. I'm like, holy crap. Like my kids ask me, well, how do I know these names? I'm like, because you've been to their graves. Bolding, like he goes, that's right. He remembers all it. Like they've been hearing these names since they were 7, 8 years old enough to tell about. And now they're reading about it in books. They're seeing it, and they've been to their graves. It's really like it's kind of a crazy moment. Yeah, but I tell them, you want to, my example is like, you need to be a leader. If you go to the infantry, you need to be a leader like Lieutenant Dobb. You know?
Well, other than
like I know that guy hated me at one time. I don't think he does anymore because we talk on the phone.
Yeah.
We communicate, and but I know he at one time he probably wanted to choke the living shit out of me. He might still want to, but it is
Choke you out of love.
I love jokes.
Well, other than keeping you out of jail, you remember any specific instances of his leadership? Any specific stories? I'm curious.
I just know that he was the kind that didn't speak up until he had to, until he needed to, and when he did, you listened because you trusted in him. If you don't trust in a leader, it doesn't matter if they speak or not. You're not going to hear the words coming out of his mouth. You'd rather not hear anything from him. But when he said something, like you believed him, you trusted him. And he led by example. Like that dude wasn't afraid to kill somebody. He wasn't afraid to whoop some ass.
Yeah.
He was about it. So you got to respect that. Even the same with Sergeant Major. Like love him or hate him, he was about it. He would go out there and fight.
Oh yeah.
Me and him went from two ends of the spectrum. We went from wanting to beat the shit out of each other. I mean, straight up during that NJP to I love the guy now. Like I see him now, I love him. He even came up to me at one of our reunions and gave me a coin and apologized to me for all that. I'm like, man, that's water under the bridge. That's part of our story. You know what I mean? Like nothing in my life has ever been normal. Like I wouldn't know how to even react if it was. So That's just the way it goes,
So I got a question for you, man. So you're as you said before, you had a prior enlistment before all of this. So you had a lot of perspective. So not only did you have age, but you were also you've done the Marine Corps once. And so did you have any specific thoughts of how we split up 81s and how there was Rainmaker and Sledgehammer? And did you have any, were you just focused on your guys and so it wasn't even a thought that we were in the other hooch and we were running our own missions?
No, dude. I mean, I was over there a lot.
No, I know, but I just mean like, anyways, go ahead.
No, it was kind of interesting to me. I was thinking, we're in a big platoon, I was like, how are we going to do this? Like, are we going to break this down? Are we going to go as one, like, massive platoon that it would be too much, honestly. With how many people do we have? 70, 60 something?
68 is a perfect TO. I think we were just short of that. So
short of that. Well, so we're in the 60s range. Yeah. So they broke us down. Like I said, with me getting into the trouble that I got into before I went over there, I wasn't sure what they were going to do with me. I'm glad that they let me, go there and be the team leader and and stuff like that, because I feel like that's where I would have not done good listening to. I don't want to sound that way, but I wouldn't have listened. There's like,
It's funny you just read
the
my
only
mind.
team you could have put me in that I would have said, dude, I'm not running this shit, is Garcia's. Anybody else, I would have just, sorry, bro, this is the way it's going to be. Um, I just think that everything lined up like it should have. In the long run, and then things that didn't line up at first, we made adjustments and we corrected it and moved forward with it. I think it went. Look, we went through hell, and majority of us came home great. That is a blessing in disguise. Look, there's a lot of people that went to Iraq. There's a lot of people that even seen combat in Iraq. There are very few people that seen the combat, that have the combat experience that we had. I'd say 95% of the people that went to that entire war did not have the experience that we had. We went through the grinder, dude. And to think about what they did when we left, how many units did they bring in to do what we were doing by ourselves?
Right.
Yeah.
Like three additional. So it was split in four pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. So got a lot of pride in that. But that's something that nobody understands except the magnificent bastards. Nobody really understands that but us. Yeah. I remember just having a sense of pride in that. I remember almost, when we had our snipers get killed on that roof. It wasn't long after that going into the chow hall I thought it was Blue Diamond, but Apple's corrected me. The old Red Baron. He's like, no, that was Junction City, JC.
Yep.
We went in for, it was a morning chow. We were taking some prisoners back to was that the breakfast in bed over there? And we would take them and we were going to go in there. We've been out all night. We had, I believe it was Watkins or somebody had blood all over them. We were really dirty. There was a bunch of shit going on. We were out doing missions. And so we went there to drop them off, and we were going to eat chow in the morning. Maybe it was the afternoon. I can't remember hell. But I just remember this sergeant major, like, trying to jump our ass. But you ain't coming in here to eat. He was an Army sergeant major. And I said, what do you mean we're not coming in here to eat? We are coming. He's like, you don't have a cover on. I said, I don't have one. I didn't bring one. He goes, you don't have a cover, and he made the comment about, maybe if you guys had a little more discipline, those snipers on that roof would still be here. I lost my shit. Like, you ever get so mad you have tears in your eyes? You're not crying because you're being a little bitch. You're crying because you want to lose your mind. Mm-hmm. Well, I ended up getting in his face. I told him straight up. I said, you make a comment like that again, I'm going to beat your ass. I got in his face. And I was talking to him like he was nothing. And I promise you, I was waiting for him to say something so I could put my hands on him. He never did. Like, he shut up real quick. He probably was like, this dude's. Like, I was losing it. Like, and that's a perfect time to lose it. Like, that's the last thing you can tell somebody in that situation. And then after however long it went by, Lieutenant Dog comes around the corner and he's like, Hodges, go eat. So I just went and I couldn't even eat. I was so mad. All I wanted to do was go out there and fight that guy. But those are your brothers, man. Like, I have pride. Even the guys that I thought I didn't really like that much going on that deployment with, like, douchebags in my platoon. I love those guys more than anything now. Like,
well, I appreciate that you love me now, buddy.
Oh, I absolutely love you. I'm going to probably call both of you guys nerds, but that wasn't because I was hating them. I was like, because those two dudes are a lot smarter than me. So I'm going to talk shit and call them nerds. I don't care. That's just how I was, man.
No, I know. I'm just messing with.
But that was a crazy situation. And once again, Lieutenant Dobb had my back,
Yeah, 100%.
And I had heard from somebody else that Sergeant Major had called our command, and Sergeant Major Booker, who we hadn't really made up yet, but we were working together good. We hadn't talked about all the shit that went on. But he ended up, I heard this, I don't know if it's true, but he ended up having my back and telling that Sergeant Major, tell me where you're at, and I'll come over there and kick your ass myself, So, like, stuff like that, when people are having your back, there's no better feeling, man. That's just the way I felt about all the guys over there. That's why I love and respect all the dudes that have been on my team. Like I said, the Tebow, the Akers, the Calderon, all of them. Like, I got so much love for those guys. And they probably at one time, I know for a fact that they thought I hated them because I have a funny story. On our reunion, when we got back, our first reunion, 10-year reunion, hadn't seen most of those guys since then, you know.
Mm.
I was sitting at a table to eat with Tebow. Tebow's wife was there, and I believe somebody else came up. And Tebow's just sitting there smiling. I'm like, dude, what are you acting so corny for? You know, he was smiling. He goes, you're talking to us like you're talking to me like I'm like a normal human. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, like, you're not even talking shit. Like, we're laughing and joking. I go, well, why does that surprise you? He goes, because you never did before. I'm like, what do you mean? And he was breaking it down to me, and I'm like, because all I did was mess with those guys. Like, I mean, it was fun for me, but
Yeah.
I'm like getting a different perspective now. I'm like, you really
Uh-huh.
thought that? He goes, I just thought you didn't like novice. I'm like, dude, I love you guys. And so and I just really thought, I was like, God, man, maybe, nah, I don't think that's the way it should have been, you know, screw it. But that was like, that opened my eyes, just that conversation. I was like, I really got to do more to let these guys know how much I love and respect them, especially when I look back on the situation and think, man, they were so young.
Yeah.
They were so young, you know, nothing but love for them, dude.
Yeah, I've got nothing bad to say about any of the command that I ever interfaced with. I unfortunately did not interface with very many of the line company commanders, so I have nothing to say for them. And maybe they hate all their commanders. I have no idea. But as far as weapons company goes, and then the headquarters guys, even the motor T officers and stuff like that were all fantastic, which I don't know. I don't know that I would have said that back in garrison, but when we deployed, everybody was great and super good to work with. And then same thing like you were saying, like some of the guys, the junior guys that, you know, you weren't sure what they were going to do. Everybody really stood up, man.
They absolutely stood up. I mean, yeah.
So you started to talk a little about your grandmother giving you a motivational speech, and I'm curious, did you find yourself religious, or did you have a good luck charm or anything? While you were over there?
I was always faithful. I'm a God believer from day one. I mean,
No?
I look back at it now, and I think that gave me a lot of the courage that I had to be, as you know, to overcome a lot of fears. I'd put it that way. To be able to do. I just felt like, I just honestly felt like that's what I was there for. Like that was what my life had. I mean, since I was 8 years old, I knew I was going to be a Marine, and I knew specifically Marine because I had both of my grandfathers were in the Marine Corps. One of them was in the Marine Corps and the Army, and I asked them at a young age, 6, 7, you know, which one was harder. And the one that was my grandpa, that was in both branches, said the Marine Corps, and I just made my mind up. Right, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I didn't want to be a pro football player. I didn't want to be a pro baseball player. I wanted to be a freaking grunt Marine. That's all I wanted to do. I just felt like everything was just lined up that way for me. That's my interest were. My personality kind of just is that way. And she gave me this. My grandma gave me she made a copy of all these Bible verses that were about, you know, war and standing up and fear and doing your thing and send me, you know.
Yeah.
I had it with me, and I have it to this day. I still have it it was with me in Iraq. And I would look at that when you think you look at it and it just motivates the hell out of you. I still have it to this day. So,
That's awesome.
like I said, I just felt like, and the way she explained it, she's like, when it's your time, it's your time. You don't think about that. You just go. I believed it. I believed it wholeheartedly. I think for me, if you didn't believe in that, where do you get any faith from? I don't know. But that's just personal on my end. I don't care where anybody else gets it. I know where I get it. It definitely helped me. I think it made me a lot braver than what I would have been without it.
I hear
Well, this is a good segue, and I'm interested to hear your part of it since he was in your platoon. What do you remember of when Savage passed?
You know, that was probably the first. I remember crying. I had a special little. I don't know. I had so much respect for Savage when he was the one that said, if you're gonna ride, I'll drive with you. I'll be your driver." You know, because that's in the beginning of the deployment when everybody was flying over. I wanted to go. I wanted to be on the ground. And Savage was the one that stood up and said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I had such respect for that dude. Yeah, I tried really hard not to break down when certain people died, but that one I couldn't, because you can't dwell on shit. But we came back that day, and when we had some done, I just remember sitting in the back of the hoot crying and hiding my face from everybody else. Um, I didn't want nobody to see me acting like that, But I have I have the best relationship with his mom to this day. Um, Mama Savage, I love. She's a mama to me. We still talk, and we always will. I'm in all that madness. I'm blessed to have that relationship with her. You know what I'm saying?
That's good, man.
And I'll never take it for granted. I'll always love her. I talk smack to her. She talks smack back. It's perfect.
That's good.
I just, some of the worst things that I have felt in that deployment was just, like when home got hit. I remember feeling the way I did. When home got hit and Hurley got hit. Do you remember what days that was?
That'd have been like March 28th ish.
It was the day that Hersher and them, I think Nyland saved their ass, pulled up when they were stranded in the middle of the road in the Hummer that they had wrecked it, remember? And it was Gunny Merarkey had pulled up, and they were out there by themselves.
So interestingly, Hersher told me that story. I do not remember that, but we might have pulled up. Yeah.
I just remember on that day we were out driving around looking for some shit, I guess. And when that IED went off, I don't know how Hurley lived through it. I thought he was going to bleed to death. Yeah. There was so much blood. And then Home was a youngster, and Home got hit. And you already feel bad because he's messed up. So you feel bad in a way, but you don't have time to even acknowledge it. Now, he gets hit. My first reaction is I get pissed off because I want to go find who did it and mow him down. Holmes started yelling for his mom. He started screaming, "Mama!" out of just shock, I guess.
Right.
And like that to me is oh man, it hit me in a way. Like it hit me kind of the same way that it hit me when the Dang situation. And I just remember it probably looked like the meanest thing in the world to do at the time. And it probably did it for selfish reasons. Half of the reason was definitely selfish. I couldn't handle hearing him say that no more. Mama. Not that it was a weak thing to do or anything like that. That's a young, 19, 20-year-old kid, however old he was. That's a big freaking deal. And it got him. He got hit pretty good.
No.
And I just remember grabbing him and putting my hand over his mouth and telling him, "Shut the fuck up. Do not say that." And a part of me was because I didn't want to hear it because it was bothering me. I didn't want whoever set that idea off hearing it, getting satisfaction from it.
Right.
That was another thing. That was a bad situation. Just hearing him scream "Mama," and then going back to the truck and all these dudes I used to be like real assholes to, not even realizing like they might have like, I don't know if they looked up to me, but they had a different kind of respect, I think, just because I had been around a little longer. And Home was like, "Hodges, how am I doing? How am I gonna do?" And I just remember looking at him, and dude, his body was just saturated with shrapnel. And I looked in the back of the Humvee, there was so much blood in there. And I just remember telling him, "You're going to be fine, dude. You're going to be fine. You're so tough." And he was just like having a conversation, but trying to keep it together at the same time. And it's like, holy crap. And then I remember when we didn't see him after that. And when we got home, seeing old H-bomb standing there, Hurley, he looked completely different. I mean, it did the number on him. But it was so good seeing him, Those are two situations, like I said, hearing Home scream for his mom like that. Like I said, there's some things that just hit you different than others, and that was one of them. I know when Walker got killed,
yeah,
it hit me hard. I mean, Walker was my friend from 1996. He was my boot. I would take him to the E Club and say, "Hey, I'm probably going to get in a fight tonight. If more than one person jumps in, have my back." And he would. He had these big old big ass ears and shaved head. And I would make fun of that dude. I have to believe that some of the reason he was tough is because of the hazing that I put him through. Because we weren't in the same platoon. We weren't in the same platoon. We were in the same company, but I lived with him and another guy from Heavy Guns or whatever platoon he was in. And I was just an abuser to boots. But he took it well. He was one of those guys that took it and you're like, this guy's gonna be good. He's gonna be good to go. So you have a certain respect for him. So losing him, that was a tough deal. I mean, anytime we lost somebody from golf company, because I had known those guys, it was a tough deal, you know. Losing anybody's tough, you know. But hearing the news, like I said, about a lot of the guys that you've known, even prior to that enlistment, passing away or getting killed like that on the same battlefield, it's tough, you know.
Well, making a transition, anything stand out through the summer? Anything offhand? I know you said you don't remember dates very well. I can jog your memory for some events if you want, but otherwise, if nothing really stands out.
Jog my memory here. Let's see some. Okay. Jog me.
So the next big bug hunt, which you guys all did like a lot of kicking down doors and stuff, was June 1st. Let's see, June 21st was those snipers getting killed. And I think if I remember correctly, and this will be me jogging your memory again, you guys were out there. And if anybody ever listens to this that's not one of our people that were in our battalion, which I don't know if there's anybody listening to this that's not in our battalion, but there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks about what happened to those snipers. But the rumor was always that they got poisoned or something because there was construction workers that worked in the base of that building. And so they weren't ambushed or anything like that. There was something else that had happened because there was no signs of a fight. But I think you were one of the ones that went up there and helped get the bodies down. Is that right?
I went up there. I did go to the roof. And I do know, I think all the other bodies that they had come down, but I could sit there and describe exactly to a T where the radio guy was sitting.
Yes.
But his brains were on the back of that wall.
Yes.
So somebody had shot him right there. I don't know anything about the poisoning or anything. I'm not even going to pretend to know.
Right.
But
Same. Me either.
but you know, I believe a lot of those guys were killed one shot to the dome, and there was two different pistols or two different pistols that did that, according to the ammo that they found up there, the casings.
Yeah.
It's a weird deal. I mean, I don't know. I just know that I went up there and I could tell where the radio man was at. You could see where everybody else was killed. It was a tough deal, man. That's why I took it so to heart when that sergeant major in the Army had made those comments.
Right.
I was, yeah, what a real shitty thing to say, you know?
Yeah.
Real shitty. I remember, I don't know, it's crazy. This is the whole story. There's, like I said, some of the best days and worst days of my life were on that deployment. I remember hearing when the book was going to come out after Greg Zorora had got a hold of me. I said, "You heard that? Like, who told you that about me?" You know, and he knew the whole story about Sergeant Major Booker and me wanting to fight and all this stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, you were married and you got into a fight because somebody was yada yada." And I was like, "You got to be." I said, "That's going to be in the book. All the shit you can say about me, you're going to put that in the book." You know? So that was kind of funny. So I remember having to tell my kids stories.
Oh,
but because my kids never knew I was married before.
Right.
And I'm like, I have to break some news to you. I was married before. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're going to hear about it in this book." They're like, "What book?" And yeah, it was kind of funny. But them being old enough now to understand it all, and they read the book and they go through it, and it's just like, it's a wake up call. Like, they're like, "Wow." Like, I had told them some stuff, but you can't tell them everything.
Right.
For one, I mean, think about it. And both of you guys will know, we could all three, we could go into a bar and start telling our stories and not even exaggerate a hair. And people are going to say, "That dude's full of shit. He's a liar."
100%.
So I don't talk to people about like that. Like, there are people that I can, you know, especially since the book came out and they're like, they want to know. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll tell you this. If you're thinking bullshit, you can reference the book because it's public information. It's not like me
Right.
trying to say we did this and we did that. But the fact is, we did do this and we did do that.
Right.
You know, all that stuff. It's kind of crazy. My kids learned about it right now, and I got to go speak at my kids when he graduated from corporal's course. Can you imagine back in the day somebody saying Hodges has been voted to be a guest speaker of his son going through graduating from corporal's course? Every one of you would have said bullshit, and guess who else would have said it? Me.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. The book coming out, I'm so glad it did come out. But part of it gives you I had mixed feelings at first. I'm like there's a lot of stuff that these parents are going to read about they knew their kid went over there and they knew they got killed fighting, and they didn't know the details like the book puts out. So I was like, man. Now I look at it like, man, I don't know if I like that or not. But then the other part of me is like, if you're going to tell a story, tell a story.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to it's hard to tell it if you don't put in all the stuff that's real. And that dude kept it real. He damn sure did.
Yep.
Right in the book. And then there's a ton of stories that didn't even make it to the book. You know why? Because the book would be 9,000 pages long.
Yeah, no.
If they really wanted to go into a whole detail about everybody's experience and everything like that, it would be a series, and it'd take like a month to get through. You know, it's pretty crazy. You know, there's
Well, it took him over 2 years to compile all the information. So yeah, it probably would be 6 books if he actually expanded it all the way out.
Yeah, and in the process of that, he lost his wife to cancer.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
She was a proofreader. She was a big part of it, and I talked to him a little bit about that, and we stayed in touch a little. It was a tough go around for him. So I give that guy the ultimate credit, and he did. He knew things about me that I'm like, how did you hear that? And he had heard from somebody, cross-referenced it with somebody. I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
So I feel like pretty good about, the stuff that he put in there. He did his diligence in getting the research done.
Yeah.
I never knew that the whole thing about us being the first, kind of like the first time that in history that somebody had been sent out with me, the lioness. I'm like,
yeah.
I would have never thought that in a million years. It's funny to me. It's funny to me. If I tell that story, nobody's going to believe it.
Yeah.
Me and Lieutenant Dow were laughing. We're like, you got to be shitting me.
Yeah.
That was the first time, It's just a wild deal. I don't know.
Well, let's bring it home, both literally and with the story. How did it feel coming home, man?
Well, when I first got home, I was I stayed afterwards and did the seat to seat with the next unit coming over. So everybody else came back. I stayed back. Didn't you guys stay back?
Yes.
Yeah. So how many was there? There wasn't a lot.
Couple from each platoon. It made three or four from each platoon.
And I think it was just me and Musser, right?
Garcia was with you.
Garcia G was with us. Okay.
Diaz was out there too. So was Reeves.
Brad. Come on, Brad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason Reeves too. Because because Diaz and Reeves got hurt on that tower when that mortar broke his leg, peppered Reeves, and blew me off that ladder on the 12th or whatever. And so
that's crazy.
And I think, were you the one that? No, that was Reeves. Never mind. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
What was we even talking about? You got me tripped up now. See, I told you.
Wrapping it up and heading home.
Oh, yeah. So when we got home, my whole plan, I had already talked to First Sergeant Mack about it. I was like, hey, when we get there, I'm going to go on leave, and I'm going to go right back to Ramadi. I'm going to go join 2-5, and we agreed to it. We got home, and then that's when who was it that got killed that stayed with them?
Ryan.
When Ryan got killed, and I got to give props to First Sergeant Mack, because he's another guy. He had my back in situations that he shouldn't. I've done, when I was a Lance Corporal slapping sergeant and slapping a corporal, and somebody would tell on me, and I'd have to go in there, and he'd just be like, Hodges. He understood, but he could have easily charged me. Oh, yeah. I mean, he never did. He had my back, and I got a lot of respect and love for that guy. But when we got back from that deployment, and I had talked to him again, I was like, hey, what do I need to do to get my shitting line to go ahead and go over there again. He goes, "You're not going." I said, "But I want to go." He goes, "You ain't going." And I was like, "Well, why?" And the man almost broke down in tears, explaining to me how Ryan had got killed. And he said, "I cannot and will not allow anybody else that made it home from that deployment to go right back over there right now and die on that deployment." He goes, "I couldn't live with myself." Here's another guy that was very religious, and he looked like just a big old animal that can kill you with just by one hand. He was a monster.
Yeah.
And but to see that soft side of him and almost break down and start crying, he was like, "Tell me," he's like, "I just know." Like, I'm wanting me to agree to it, but at the same time reassuring me, "I'm not going to let you." Like, he wanted me to feel better, but saying, "Yeah, you're right. I don't want to go." But I did want to go, but he wasn't going to let it happen. And I respect him for that, for the reasons that he did it. You know, um, you know, big old animal. First sergeant man.
Mhm.
Man, we walked in a room, people like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
You know.
So did you end up going over on the Okie tour then?
On the one, so after that, I ended up going to Wounded Regiment Battalion. It's funny, after all the shit that I went through with this is another funny story that I went through with Sergeant Major Booker before that deployment. Of course, you go to war with somebody and you respect them in a whole different way. Like, I love the guy now. When we got back, this was the guy that was threatening to court-martial me. He was like, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "I want to re-enlist." He's like, "Let's go." He took me to the career planner. At the time, he was at 2-4. Like, how they'll come and visit and set up the table. And we went over there, and it was a gunnery sergeant. I can't remember his name, but he was a sergeant in my platoon when I was in 3-4 in weapons company. He's like, "You gotta be shitting me." I just, he was like, "You gotta be kidding me." He's like, "They let you back in the Marine Corps." I was like, "Even better." He wants me to re-enlist. It was Sergeant Major Booker. But I had, they were going to have to send me to Wounded Regiment Battalion, and they said you could be on medical hold for up to 3 years right now because everybody that's coming back from the deployments right now, it's like a medical hold, and they said it's taken forever to get through these, and you can't pick up rank, you can't really do anything but stay there until they do their physical and all this stuff. And then, but they told me, with your back injuries and stuff like that, you're going to have to go get all this MRIs and stuff done. They're like, "You can probably stay, but you're going to end up having to get out of the infantry." And I was like, "Nah, I'm not." No, no disrespect to any other job, but that's all I knew. I wasn't going to be good at any other job they put me in. So I was like, then there's no point in it. So I got out like a little after 9 years.
Okay.
So don't regret any bit of it. Loved every second of it. The greatest friends I've ever met in the world were in those 2 enlistments. They're the closest people that I've ever been to. And everything, it was worth it for me. Every bit of it. So
Nice, man.
Yep.
And if I remember correctly, and I might be wrong, I might have to cut this out later, but you did some stuff with veterans afterwards, right? You worked for a couple veterans organizations?
So, absolutely. When I got out of the Marines, I had worked a couple jobs I was successful at, but it wasn't fulfilling as like I wanted it to be, It just, and I get bored with shit easy, 2, 3, 4 years into a job, I'm like, it's time for something else. So I ended up getting picked up by the Wounded Warrior Program originally, and they introduced me to some people in different organizations. And it's when we had so many people come home from 2-4 commit suicide, like so many.
Oh, yeah.
And the story got out, and for whatever reason, it's a lot of people that were going through, I won't give names. We're going through a lot of serious hard times from our battalion. Even guys that they knew me because of my antics and my loudness, but I knew who they were, but I didn't know them as well as they knew me. They would reach out to me and they would say, "Hey, I feel like, hurting myself, or I feel like ending my life." And it's just weird how that happened, because I was like, why would they call me? But I just, I don't know. It just worked out to that way where people would, I don't know, felt comfortable enough to talk to me about stuff like that. And I would shoot it to them straight, like no bullshit, straight. And, but I did it with like in a hard way, but with love. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like a best friend would say, look, dude, you don't need to hear this, but you're being a little bitch right now. Or you might want to think about this. You have to hear it from that. And so it just opened up so many doors. And I ended up traveling around, speaking at different suicide prevention and programs and raising money and stuff like that. And I did that for a while. I did it until COVID hit. And COVID took a lot of the nonprofits.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't get any money for that stuff no more.
Right. Yeah.
So, I still went and I did a lot of speeches and stuff for like veterans events. And, there was like the guy, Exxon would hire me to come out and speak to. They were starting a branch of with their HR that was specifically for their employees that had experienced combat and was dealing with PTSD and stuff like that. So I was able to get involved with stuff like that and start things like that for companies and programs that I would have never been able to do if I didn't have the experience that I have, or them just being leaked that. We had a camera crew come out from California that come out. It's another funny story. When I found out I was having problems sleeping, it was like, I think I got a brain injury. I don't understand. I can't remember shit like this. Something's wrong. I need to get help. The VA was just not taking me serious. And in true form, I get a hold of a doctor. And I said, hey, dude, here's the deal. Doctor, I'm not going to say his name. And I threatened him. I said, I just don't feel like the VA is giving me any attention. So here's the deal. I left this on a voicemail, which I know he can play that to anybody, but I didn't care. When you've had like the sergeant major in the Army thing, when you've had enough, you don't think about consequences because you don't care.
Right.
Never been one to think a lot about consequences. I'll deal with it after the fact. But I said, here's the deal. And I had been reading all these reports about it linking, head injuries and the same symptoms that I had linking to like Alzheimer's and all this, CTE and all this suicide stuff. And I know I went through a hard batch of depression. It was mostly about the people we lost. It wasn't about nothing else really. It was just about that. And I realized a lot of it was me bringing some of it on myself, kind of wallowing in it. I just felt like I need to tell people they need to quit doing maybe what I was doing. You definitely need to get your help, but some of it's all between your ears, or mainly between your ears. And I was putting that message out there. And like I said, we got to start these different programs. And I feel like it's all worked out the way it should. And I've been blessed. Even going through all the bullshit we went through. Like, that's just part of it. Like, they think that was all meant. It was meant to be. You hear people talking about the post-traumatic stress and all this, but I remember General Mass talking about it, and I agree. It's like, I think I experienced a lot of post-traumatic growth. Like, I'm like, shit, I think that bad right now. I'm having a bad day. I'm like, not one person has tried to kill me today.
Yeah.
I mean, they might have, but I didn't know about it,
Right.
Like nobody, I didn't have a friend lose his life today. I didn't have an ID go off, there's a lot to be gained from that experience. It's not just supposed to be all negative. It's not. Like I said, we have a lot of guys that we went on deployment with that didn't get to experience that. They trained these Marines that went on that deployment with us for 4 years, and we get burnt on our last deployment. So they say, screw this. I'm not going to re-enlist. Yep. So they don't re-enlist. And then we end up going and seeing the heaviest shit the war could produce. And a lot of them, they have cried to me. They're like, I feel so guilty. I'm like, I understand why you feel that way. I would probably feel that way. But here's the reality. If you don't think that your involvement or your Marine Corps time of your experience with us in that situation, look at all the guys. And there was 2 of them specifically I pointed out directly. Let me tell you about this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. They went over there and they were successful at what they did. Do you want to know why? Yep. Because you were their squad leader. You were their team leader. You were a hard ass to them. You put them through the shit, and they only responded by the way you trained them to respond. So you directly impacted those deployments, probably helped save their lives and kill enemy and save other Marines' lives just by you training them and have them under that. Don't feel like you missed the boat completely because you weren't there. Dude, you impacted the platoon and these individuals significantly more than, I mean, you're not going to train anybody in 2 weeks how to go be a war vet.
Right.
But you can train them over the course of time, and that's exactly what these guys have done. And they don't ever give themselves credit. And I think a lot needs to be said for those guys. You know,
I've been very vocal about that. Yes.
I have. I just remember a couple of them specifically come, and guys you would not expect, and they just cried to me. I'm like, you know, I understand, but I'm like, you better stop that shit now. Right. And call them a few choice words that only Marines call each other is an expression of love. It's all out of love. If I didn't call you this right now, you wouldn't think I loved you, you know. But I think those guys need to. There's something needs to be said about those guys. The people that put in the work to these youngsters that went over there, and they might. I wouldn't call it getting glory, but they get the glory. And these other guys that they feel like because they didn't experience the combat part of it, they didn't have an impact. That's a lie. They directly impacted it, you know.
100%.
Honored.
100%.
And I'm grateful that all of those guys were in those positions that they needed to be in at that time, because that helped every one of us, you, me, and everybody else there.
I've stayed close with my senior Marines, Mark Schott, Saunders,
absolutely.
Stuff like that, and I've been very vocal with them of being like, I came back because of you guys, and
So I had a lot of guys that when I was out giving, you know, and I still will on occasion, but it's just hard to do without the money coming in from, you know, ever since COVID, it's just that line of work has taken a hit, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, because those businesses went out and they just don't have what it takes to start up again. But a lot of people that I would talk to, a good portion of them were guys like that. They were having legitimate issues, struggling with depression because they felt like they just felt bad. I'm like, why do you feel bad about that? That wasn't in your hands. Because you know it. If somebody would have said, hey, if you just stay around for one more deployment, you guys are going to go to
If you had a crystal ball
on the planet, and you're going to be, they would have said, sign, where do I sign right now? They would have done it.
Yep.
But they had a bad taste in their mouth, and they're like, no, I'm not going to do it. And every one of them regret it. I'm like, you can't regret something like that, you know?
Right.
You just can't regret something like that. So, yeah, that was a lot of the people that I talked to were like that in that same situation. I felt bad for them because I feel like, honestly, if I was in the same position as them, I might be the same as them. I might be feeling that same way.
Sure.
You want to be in the fight. I remember it's so crazy. It's not even a normal way of thinking. When we first got there and you hear the rounds going off out in town, and you know, weapons company got to go everywhere, fight everybody with every company. And I love that shit. Everywhere there was a battle in Ramadi, we've been there. Weapons company was there. I got to take pride in that. We fought along every company. I can tell you everything about it, you know.
Yep.
That's something else that I take pride in. But I forgot the point I was trying to make once again. What was we saying?
No, you're good, man. We're just kind of wrapping it up anyway. Actually, that's probably a good place to cap it off. It's been a couple hours.
If you like what you've heard, this is a multi-part episode. Make sure you listen to the rest of the story.